Andrew Cuomo said yesterday in some of his remarks that, Donald Trump runs all over the country saying, make America great again. Well, guess what? America's never been great. We never were great. Our greatness lies in the potential and the reality of the potential that everybody could live up to his or her maximum potential. That's what he believes the greatness is all about. So Andrew Cuomo is out now. I mean, his staff walked back some of the comments, but Andrew Cuomo is somebody who is, as we speak, seriously considered a presidential candidate on the Democrat side. They're still searching for somebody that fits the mold of the candidate they need to combat the very unusual methodology of Donald Trump. But Cuomo's remarks yesterday were fairly incredible to me. And some of the people in the room, you heard the reaction. They were very uncomfortable with that remark. And his staff kind of, walked it back a little bit. And Cuomo hadn't walked it back at all. I mean, he's actually tweeted in response to a Trump tweet. Trump tweeted, make America great again. You got a guy there in the highest tax state in America saying, it's never been great. What are we even talking about here? Well, I mean, I just think that aside from what Cuomo said, I'm very interested in how the reaction is, because I do believe there is an element within the Democrat Party now who are so deeply offended by Donald Trump, so disgusted with Trump, so opposed and resistant to Donald Trump, that they'll accept somebody saying, make America great again is a racist, sexist, bigoted sort of slogan and campaign mantra. I don't know how you get there, but that's kind of where the other side is. And it goes to the bigger argument. Can we reconcile some of the differences? We're not talking about whether to spend, $80 billion or $90 billion on an aircraft carrier. We're not talking about, whether to 4-lane this road or 2-lane that road and 4-lane this one. We're not talking about some of what I'd argue some of the core functions. We're talking about an ideology. We're talking about the fundamental role of government in all of our lives. And we have become so divided, deeply, deeply, deeply divided. And it's not just the loudest voices anymore. It is the absolute mainstream. And it goes back to the poll that we read Monday on Good Morning PD Live 95. There are more people who refer to themselves as Democrat voters. And I don't think you can escape this reality. I don't think we can have a political conversation today without this helping frame the debate. That there is a party out there, one of the most prominent political parties in American history, the modern-day Democrat Party. That party today, and it's not my opinion, it's not Fox News saying this, it's not Breitbart, it is the people that vote in Democrat primaries profess loudly, clearly, and without question that they believe socialism is the way to go. Now, I said yesterday, most of the data I've looked at leads me to believe that 20 years ago, not 100 years ago, 20 years ago, only 2% of Democrat voters believed that socialism was a governing philosophy worth considering. And now you've got about 42 or 3% of all Democrats who believe that socialism, and only about 39% that believe in capitalism. So by a larger number, the percentage of average, everyday Democrat voters believe there's something to this intrigue, this romance that we're having with modern-day Democrat socialism. Now, there's a lot of issues within the Republican ranks. There's no doubt about that, and they're trying to settle some issues within their own party. But I just find, and I look at myself as a Republican, and the views I have of government, the way I perceive government to operate and function and integrate itself into our daily lives. And I'm looking at Democrats, and I'm going, okay, the majority of people who vote for you on your side believe that socialism is the way to go. I don't know how we reconcile that. I mean, we're on two different planets. We're not on two different sides of the aisle. We're on two different sides of the planet. And we're told over and over and over and over again how critically important it is to compromise in the world of politics, the art of compromise. It's how you advance an agenda. Well, I mean, if you got a group of people who believe in an economic theory called capitalism and the free market, you've got another large, substantial group of people who don't believe in that, because you can't believe in socialism and be a capitalist. You can't. I mean, those two don't, I mean, that's oil and water. They don't jive. They don't jive. You can't make that work. I mean, I've heard several people on television, prominent, Democrat voices, I like capitalism with a little sprinkle of socialism. Well, that's kind of the American government today. Well, we've had that debate for 3 or 4 or 5 days, but I still go back to the state of California and their belief that they couldn't reconcile. They couldn't make, you're from Mars, I'm from Venus, I can't talk to you, you can't talk to me. There is no common ground. We don't have any issues we agree on. And I do believe the void, the distance between one political base and the other political base is as large as it's ever been. We hear a lot of talk. Jernigan talks on Friday mornings about the need to work in the middle. I think Dr. Thigpen talks a lot about the need to work in the middle. Most answers to America's problems are somewhere in the middle of the road. I don't disagree with that. I just think the two parties and their very, very passionate voting blocs have become so deeply divided, so incredibly divided, that there's not middle ground, that there's not an interest in an agenda from one side of the aisle. This nationalist Make America Great Again movement, it falls on deaf ears with half the country. Half the country don't want to hear that. Whether they agree, they don't want to hear that. It's Donald Trump. It has to do with Trump. It reminds them of the red hat, the rallies, what they perceive to be the bias and hatred and bigotry and things like that. And they don't want any, they have no appetite whatsoever for it. And then I believe, Alec, our side of the aisle, the Republican voter, the mainstream Republican voter, is still scorned and scolded by the Obama years, the Obamacare intrusion of government into the health care. And I just, I'm not optimistic about us being able to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. I'm just not. I just, for the life of me, I believe we're in a very different political period. I think bipartisanship is a cool word to utter on radio shows. I think it sounds good when you're a host on MSNBC. Everybody likes the way that sounds, bipartisanship. We got to have a more bipartisan effort to fix health care and a more bipartisan effort to fix some of the ills of the world, the funding of militaries. I mean, we need to have bipartisan agreements. I just think that's a hokey word that means very little. And I think the two parties, as we speak, have no interest whatsoever in any sort of bipartisan effort to advance an agenda that may or may not be in America's best interest. And I want to say this, I go back to James Carville's comments on election night. For those that blame the president, and there are a lot of you out there that blame the president for the level of animosity one group has with another in our political discourse today, I think that's unfair to the president. I think Donald Trump ran on a very, very, very clear and concise message. Donald Trump did not run as a uniter. Donald Trump never misled anybody about his agenda. I mean, it was about immigration. It was about trade. It was about, putting America first. So for you out there who say, well, I mean, Trump's the reason we've got all this animosity. Trump's the reason we got all this division. Trump is the reason we have one side so angry at the other side. I disagree with that. I mean, I just absolutely couldn't disagree more. I think it's always been there. I think the media ran interference for the majority of these disagreements we've had. But this country has gradually and incrementally kind of divided itself along political ideologies. And along came Trump, a tell it like it is kind of guy. And I know some of you don't like the way he tells it like it is, but he doesn't sugarcoat things. He doesn't try to use the typical political speech and the way he addresses issues. And I think pulling the scab off and pulling the bandage off and really revealing the illness and the cancer that has been afflicting the American political system for a long time is more evident today than it ever was. And I think Trump has really gotten under people's skin. I think Andrew Cuomo, a lot of what he said yesterday, regretfully, maybe he doesn't regret it, but his staff, per some of the emails and tweets I've seen, are very, very, very regretful of it. But I just wonder if we've not gotten to a place, and excuse the simple language of which I say this, that we can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. There just isn't any bipartisanship. There is no interest in any bipartisanship. I don't give a rat's rear end what you believe. You don't give a rat's rear end what I believe. I think you're crazy. You think I'm crazy. And I believe that's the norm in American politics. I just believe that's where we are today in American politics. And once again, I'm all for compromising with Democrats. I really am. I've spent some time in elected office. Most of you know at the county and state level. And I always was willing to compromise. I always wanted to find some common ground. But when I, as a Republican, look at some of the data and analytics from the Democrat Party, and I see clearly that a majority of you, or a large plurality, more of you than not, believe that socialism is the preferred economic theory over capital. We don't have a lot of negotiating room. There isn't a whole lot of places we can go. We just agree to disagree. And I don't know how you take socialism and capitalism and create bipartisanship.